Good afternoon, Cross Timbers. Today is Thursday, April 24th, 2014. This is Texan TV News from Tarleton State University campus in Stephenville, Texas, and I'm Shelby Hilton. In today's headlines, 63-year-old kidnapped man returns home, Tarleton students produce short films and acts, demolition crews find a piece of history, a South Texas architect has pleaded guilty to a federal conspiracy charge, Syrian government forces attack, and Texan golf brings home a Lone Star Conference win. And now for today's top story from the Associated Press. Friday evening, kidnappers thought they were about to abduct an assistant district attorney who sent a high-ranking gang member to prison for life. But they had the wrong address, and when the prosecutor's father answered the door, they took him instead. For 5 days, authorities said the kidnappers held 63-year-old Frank Jensen captive in an Atlanta apartment, tormenting his family by sending text messages threatening to cut him to pieces if police were called to demand or their demands weren't met. They even sent a photo of him tied up in a chair. On Wednesday, an indictment charged 9 people involved in Jensen's abduction, including 49-year-old Bloods member Kelvin Melton, who authorities said was calling the shots by cell phone from his North Carolina prison cell. In early April, Melton called and told his team to kidnap the ADA, was identified in the indictment as a Wake County Assistant Direct Attorney. One of the team members used the internet to look up Colleen Jensen's address, but actually found her father's home in Wake Forest, about 15 miles north of Raleigh. When they got to Jensen's home, 3 of the kidnappers went to the door while another waited in the car, according to the indictment. When Frank Jensen cracked the door, the kidnappers forced their way in, hit him with a stun gun several times, and pistol-whipped him. As they drove back to Atlanta, Jensen was forced to lie on the floorbed of a back seat of a rental car. They put handcuffs on him and used the stun gun on him dozens of times. The indictment doesn't say what happened when Melton discovered they kidnapped Jensen's father instead of the prosecutor, but 2 days after he was taken, Jensen's wife started receiving the threatening text messages. At one point, authorities had determined Melton and orchestrated the scheme and was still calling the shots behind bars. When correction officers tried entering his cell, he smashed the phone. Authorities pinpointed Jensen's location and stormed the apartment. A short while later, 3 of the 9 people charged were caught in a Chevy Tahoe that had 2 shovels, a pick, and a gun inside. Melton was indicted along with the 9 others, all facing a federal conspiracy charge related to the abduction. In campus news from the Tarleton website, Tarleton students produce short films and acts will be featured at the 9th Annual Student Film Festival on Thursday, April 24th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. in the OA Grant Building, room 118. The Department of Communication Studies is hosting the event to no cost to the viewers. Dr. Robert Anderson, the film students' advisor, said this is a particularly strong year with several films in contention. 15 student films in various genres such as narrative, animation, and documentary styles will be screened. The films are Gone by Josh Duran, a thriller, In a Dream by Christine Pritchett, animated film, The Hunger Games by Rebecca Gabert, animated film, TSU Homecoming by Dawn Skinner, a documentary, and Darkness by Autumn Owens, a zombie film. Students in the Foreign Honors Film class will act as judges for the event, awarding one film Best of Fest. Winning films in the past have covered all genres such as horror, romance, and documentary. In regional news reported by the Stephenville Empire-Tribune, demolition crews tearing down the old Chamberlain Elementary School have discovered a little piece of history tucked away inside the walls more than 60 years ago. Charlie Ratliff, superintendent of the construction site, said they were tearing down the southeast corner of the building when a truck driver who was waiting to be loaded happened to see a red can inside the brick wall. He then stopped the excavator and went to retrieve the can. What he found was a Prince Albert tobacco can stuck to the mortar in the inside of the wall near the principal's office. Inside the can was a piece of paper sack that had a note written on it from April of 1951. The excited crew presented the can to Chamberlain Principal Barry Cabot on Wednesday. Ratliff, who grew up in Stephenville but now lives in Brownwood, said he remembers 2 of the men whose names were written on the paper, Willie Farm and Leonard Goodman. He said they were bricklayers at the time Chamberlain was originally constructed. Anyone with information about these men are asked to call 965-3124. Now for today's Texas and international news from the Associated Press. In Texas news, a South Texas architect had pleaded guilty in Houston to a federal conspiracy charging for paying bribes to elected officials in order to win contracts with school districts. The U.S. Attorney's Office said Wednesday that 58-year-old Jesus Bustow of Idea Group LLC in McAllen admitted to paying bribes from 2004 to 2013 to win millions of dollars worth of contracts in Progresso and Weslaco. Earlier this month, Progresso's mayor, former school board president, and former school district maintenance and transportation supervisor, two brothers and their father, pleaded guilty to related charges for creating a pay-to-play system that earned them kickbacks in city and school district projects. Bustos faced up to 5 years in prison. U.S. District Judge David Hittner sent sentencing for July 25th. In international news, Syrian government forces have attacked rebel-held areas with poisonous chlorine gas in recent weeks and months, leaving men, women, and children coughing, choking, and gasping for breath. According to Associated Press interviews with more than a dozen activists, medics, and residents on the opposition side, the reporters were denied by Syria and have yet to be confirmed by any foreign countries or international organization. But if true, they highlight the limitations of the global effort to rid President Bashar Assad's government of its chemical weapons. Witnesses near Damascus and in central rebel-held village told the AP of dozens of cases of choking, fainting, and other afflictions from inhaling fumes that some said were yellowish and smelled like chlorine cleanser. They said the fumes came from hand grenades and helicopter-dropped barrel bombs, which are crude containers packed with explosives. Activists have posted videos similar, though on a far smaller scale, to those from last August's chemical weapons attack near Damascus that killed hundreds of people and nearly triggered U.S. airstrikes against Syria. The new footage depicts pale-faced men, women, and children coughing and gasping at field hospitals. It's an accusation that carries high stakes, and the Syrian opposition has an interest in pushing such claims in hopes of drawing the international community into taking stern action against the Assad. So far, the new images have barely registered with the international community, underscoring deep reluctance by world powers to step into another murky episode of Syria's civil war days ahead of Sunday's decline for the government to hand over all its chemical weapons for destruction. Chlorine is a potentially lethal chemical with a multitude of ordinary civilian uses, including laundry bleach and swimming pool disinfectant. In high concentrations, it can attack the lungs and asphyxiate victims. While chlorine was first deployed on the battlefield in World War II, it is no longer officially considered a warfare agent and is not among the chemicals declared by Syria. It is not effective at killing sarin, the nerve agent that was apparently used last summer, and experts say it is difficult to achieve high concentrations of chlorine by dropping it from the air. Still, any toxic chemical is considered to be a chemical weapon if it is used for military purposes. Consequently, Syria's use of chlorine-filled bombs, if confirmed, would be a violation of the Chemical Weapons Treaty that Assad's government signed last year as part of a deal to hand over its stockpile. U.S. State Department Jen Psaki said Monday that officials were still trying to determine what happened. French President François Hollande told Europe One radio station there were elements suggesting recent use of chemical weapons, but no proof. Both countries bluntly accused the Syrian government of using sarin against civil areas in the August attack near Damascus. And in sports news from Tarleton Sports, for the 7th straight year and the 8th time in school history, the Tarleton State women's golf program took home the Lone Star Conference Championship. The Texans carded a 2-day score of 42 over par at the Ran Rock course at Horseshoe Bay. Sophomore Isabel Jimenez-Pera claimed the LSC individual title with a 2-day leisure of 145, giving Tarleton a medalist in the tournament for the 3rd time overall and first time since 2011. Tarleton's score of 610 is the third lowest round recorded for a Texan team at the LSC Championship, and the lowest round in school history, played over 36 holes at a par 71 course. The Texans won the event by 26 strokes and over West Texas A&M, which finished in second place with a score of plus 68. The 26-stroke advantage marked the second largest win for the Texans in the LSC Championship, trailing only the 2011 team, which won the event by 29 strokes at the Republic Golf Course in San Antonio. For the first time in school history, Tarleton featured 4 out of the top 5 golfers in the final individual leaderboard, with Jessica Pickwick finishing just a few places back of Jimenez Pereira in third place, Sharon Lau taking 4th place honors, and Beatrice Prados taking 5th place. Sarah Fulfer rounded out Tarleton's individual scores and finished in the tie for 28th place. The Texans will next await the NCAA Division II West Regional selections, which will be announced in a press release next Monday, April 28th. The West Regional, which will be hosted by Dallas Baptist, will take place May 5th through 7th at Walnut Creek Country Club in Mansfield. Now for today's weather forecast from the Weather Channel. Today's high is sunny 82 degrees and a low of 61 degrees. The weekend is looking much the same, with warm temperatures and sunny conditions. Today's broadcast was produced by Laura Rylant and Carly West. Don't forget to tell your friends about us and become a fan of Texan TV News on Facebook. I'm Shelby Hilton. Tune in tomorrow for the latest news from the Tarleton State University campus in Stephenville, Texas.